It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's what Millsy, back with the hometown commander. We're back for another episode of Millsy Brew, the show where I brew my version 1.0 deck list of the commanders in front of us on my quest to outbrew the magic world. We're continuing our Lost Caverns of Ixalan Pirates week with our second of our two partner decks, and today we are introducing Francisco Fowl Marauder into the mold. And so today we're doing Francisco and Malcolm. We're doing Dimir Pirates. This one I was intrigued when I looked at Francisco to see what it and Malcolm could do together. We have two things that care about creatures. Our pirates attacking. We can see what the deck comes to. But let's read them both. Francisco Fowl Marauder is a 2-mana 0/1 bird pirate with flying that said it cannot block. And whenever one of our pirates deal damage to a player, it explores. So explorer mechanic means we're going to look at the top card of our library. If it's a library, we put it into our hand. If it's a non-land card, we put a +1/+1 counter on that creature, and we have a choice. We can either put it into the graveyard or put it back on top. So we want to be attacking to make Francisco bigger and bigger, and it's in the air, so it's going to contribute to its own ability in hitting some people. And then we have Malcolm, Keen-Eyed Navigator, a 2 and a blue for a 2/2 Siren Pirate with flying. Whenever one of our creatures deal damage to your opponents, we create a treasure for each opponent that was dealt damage. Okay, well, let's look with our other pirate decks we've been talking about this week. Malcolm adds the idea of treasures to our deck, and black, of course, has a lot of payoffs for treasures. So we're going to be talking about that. But I think the other thing we're just going to do is just try to use our Dimir colors, blue and black, to try to slow down our opponents, try to take advantage of maybe taking some of their stuff, getting treasures, growing Francisco, and maybe just trying to end the game in a couple different ways. We have the commander damage way, we have the treasures. I think we have lots of interesting ways to win the game that way. Okay, well, let's first talk about how we're going to try to slow down our opponents and play some Dimir control. We're trying out Tasha the Witch Queen, a 5-mana planeswalker that says whenever we cast a spell we don't own, we make a demon. And then it says draw a card, +1 draw a card for each opponent. Exile up to 1 target instant source from that player's graveyard and put a page counter, and then -3 we can cast a spell from among cards in exile with page counters on them. This is a way to just take things from our opponent's graveyards and be able to use them, which I think is interesting. But in blue and black, we get to play something fun like Hostage Taker, 4-mana 2/3 pirate that says when it enters the battlefield, we exile another target artifact or creature until it leaves the battlefield, and we can cast that card for as long as it remained exiled and spend mana of any type. This is fun because we could take one of our opponent's artifacts or creatures and pay them for ourselves. That could be good. We could steal a combo piece. We could steal a mana rock. We could do a lot of fun things with Hostage Taker, or just use it to take somebody's commander off the battlefield and try to get them to deal with it that way. A card that we saw get reprinted, I don't recall if it's new or not, and I apologize if it's not. If it is new, then it's a great card. If it's not, it's a great reprint, and that's Merchant Raiders. It says whenever it or another pirate enters the battlefield under our control, we tap it to 1 target creature. That creature doesn't untap for as long as Merchant Raiders is controlled by us. This is a really cool card because it's going to allow us to lock down our opponent's things and hopefully give us some that advantage as we slowly try to take over the game. We have Ramirez DPI Pillager. So when it enters the battlefield, we lose 2 life and make 2 treasures. So we get half of that mana back that we pay for Ramirez. And it says whenever one of our pirates we control do common damage to a player, we exile the top card of that player's library. We can cast that card for as long as they're made exile. So this is kind of fun because it allows us to also take some of our opponent's cards as well. But again, it has a very similar effect to Malcolm and Francisco. We're trying to attack. We're trying to deal that damage and get these abilities as we deal damage to our opponents. And of course, a card that's going to get talked about a lot in this time of Lost Caverns of Ixalan stuff, and for every Kindred or Tribal deck in the future, Roaming Throne. When it comes in, we're gonna pick Pirate. It becomes a pirate. And if a triggered ability of another creature we control of that type triggers, it triggers an additional time. Malcolm's going to trigger twice. Francisco's going to trigger twice. All of our pirates are going to trigger twice. And this is the kind of card that's just going to help us push the game forward as we get all of this value from our creatures. Okay, we're going to try to slow down our opponents, but we're also going to try to make treasures and grow Francisco at the same time, right? Malcolm and Francisco both care about us attacking. Both of them give us value, one giving us treasures, one growing Francisco. So we still want to do that. We still want to grow Francisco, but we also want to make the treasures at the same time. One of the cool new cards that's going to help us do that is the Indomitable. Whenever creature control, we do a common damage to a player, we draw a card, and then we can crew it to make it bigger, a 6/6 with trample. Now, the Indomitable isn't a pirate, but it's still going to hit hard. And when we crew it, and of course, when any of our creatures do damage to a player, we also draw cards, which is going to help us get through our library and get access to more things. Malcolm, Alluring Scoundrel, one of the new cards from the set, says whenever it deals damage to a player, we put a chorus counter on it, draw, and then discard. If there are 4 more chorus counters on it, we can cast the card we discarded without paying its mana cost. As we're attacking and dealing damage, we can be growing Malcolm with those counters and then getting some free spells or creatures for free, again, as we make these attacks and get value from it. Orcite Marauder, whenever it attacks, target creature defending player controls loses all abilities and is an 0/1 until end of turn. It's going to take pesky blockers out of the way and help us really get in with some of our creatures, again, to hit for our damage and use both of our commander's abilities. Zephyr Singer is a 4-mana Siren Pirate with flying and vigilance and has Convoke, and it says whenever it enters the battlefield, put a flying counter on each creature that convoked it. This is pretty cool because if we have some pirates on the ground, we can use them to convoke Zephyr Singer to get them into the air to, again, help them hit our opponent and do more damage. I think we're going to see a lot of these pirates that have flying are going to help us out a lot because hopefully our opponents aren't going to have flyers, and we're going to activate more of these combat damage triggers as we get things into the air. Sure. There are other ways where we could give our things unblockable. There's a lot of other ways we can do that, and we have some ways to do that we'll talk about with some things like maybe something like Open into Wonder, pay X blue X, target creatures can't be blocked this turn, and whenever they deal damage to a player, we draw a card. We have something like Raise the Palisade, which can just bounce all our opponent's creatures back to their hand that aren't pirates and allow us to get a big attack in. So that's a way, that we can bounce all those back and get a free attack in. But I think we're going to try to leverage this flying, menace, unblockable, try to leverage some of these type of abilities to get good damage into our opponents as we, again, try to grow Francisco and make those treasures. Okay. Well, how do we win at the end of the day? We're dealing damage. We're getting these treasures, we're getting this value. How do we win with it today? Well, as you already heard talk about a couple times this week, and you're going to hear it again, we have easy and fun win cons for the treasures. We have something like Revel in Riches, where whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, we make a treasure. That's out of our upkeep. If we have 10 or more treasures, we win the game. We can also, very similar type card, Mechanized Production, a card that says at the beginning of your upkeep, we create a copy of a token that's a copy of the enchanted artifact. We can put this on a treasure or on something else. But if we do put it on a treasure, it says, you don't have to put it on a treasure, just whatever we enchant it to, we'll get a copy of on each turn. So if we're making enough treasures, we don't have to put this on a treasure, but if we do, we get one at the start of every turn, and then, after that trigger goes off, if we control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, we win the game. What I like about Mechanized Production is you don't have to put it on a treasure to win because of the treasures, but it, of course, will help you accelerate towards that if that's something you want to do. We also have something like Rogue Class, which you can give all of our creatures Menace if we level it up. And then as we level it up more, we can take more advantage of taking our opponent's spells and using them to our advantage. And then, of course, we're playing something like Rise and Shine. It says target non-creature artifact you control becomes an artifact creature. We put 4 +1/+1 counters on it. For 6 mana, we can make every non-creature artifact we control into a creature. If we have a ton of treasures and we've yet to see any of these payoffs to help us win with treasures, we just play a Rise and Shine, make all of our treasures into 4/4s, and take a big attack to hopefully take our opponent down. I think that's the key of our deck. We're trying to control the board a little bit, get the treasures, use them for the fun. Like I've said on this show multiple times, and I'll continue saying again, and no deck is perfect, and there are things we can do to make a deck better. And I think there's a couple cards that as I was making this deck, and you can see it in the considering section of the deck list if you go to it. I always try to leave the cards that I'm considering so you guys can see where my head's at. There are 1 or 2 that I really wanted to, include, but I just was a little bit far off. First is Expedition Map, just so we get us an extra land with an artifact. We're in blue and black, so the only access we have to ramp is just by drawing. So I thought, why not try to get us a way to get an extra land for a little bit cheaper, and we can cash it anytime we want to. Second was something like Agent of the Iron Throne. It says commander creatures we control have whenever an artifact or creature you control is put from the graveyard into the graveyard from the battlefield, your opponent loses a life. I love backgrounds in partner decks because Agent of the Iron Throne, if both of them are out, is giving this ability to each of them, which means anytime we sacrifice a treasure with Agent of the Iron Throne out, everyone's losing 2 life. So if we control both Francisco and Malcolm, I wanted to, I just couldn't find the spot for it, but I think it'd be one of those cards that I would pretty easily bring in. to go right away. And then the last card is something like Mind Crank. If we really wanted to try to hurt our opponents by milling them a little bit, we could do something like Mind Crank or Court of Cunning just to help mill our opponents, get cards from their libraries into their graveyard, because not every deck runs the recursion to be able to get things back out of their graveyard and start kind of pushing our opponents down that way. All right, well, like every episode of Millsy Brews, let's get into some play testing. Let's see how we would try to maneuver this. Remember, we have a 2 and a 3 mana commander, so we should hopefully be able to get these guys down pretty soon. Turn 1, we have 4 lands on. Actually, all 4 of them can come in untapped because of these 2 islands we have in our hand. We'll put Unclaimed Territory in and call Pirate. Again, we have nothing to do turn 1, but we do have something to do turn 2. We'll put this Choked Estuary in untapped because of this island, and we get Francisco down right away. Again, we want to get it down right away because we then need to get other things down to start dealing damage to our opponent. And the next turn, we drop our island here. A couple ways we can do this. We can get the Scoundrel down to start attacking. We could get Malcolm down. Start attacking. We could play something like the Midnight Clock and get that cooking, which after a few turns will allow us to get some cards back into our hand. We could leave up removal depending on the game, but I think I just slam Malcolm here. Now, unfortunately, Francisco can attack, but it can't actually do any damage at the moment, so we just have to move on from here. Turn 4, we get another island down. This turn, Malcolm can attack, and if no one has a flying blocker, we'll get to activate both his ability and Francisco's ability. So I think what I would do here is we could get the Clock and the Boots down. We could get Scoundrel down and hold up some removal, being the Rapid Hybridization if we want to. I kind of like the idea of getting the Clock down to get some more mana, so I think I would do that and leave the Hybrid and the Reality Shift up, hit him with Malcolm, get a treasure. Let's say we do that this turn and we explore, Secluded Courtyard goes into our hand, and Francisco wouldn't get a counter that turn, unfortunately. But let's draw for the next turn. Get that Courtyard down. We see Deadeye Plunderers. It gets +1/+1 for each artifact we control, and we can create a treasure for 4 mana with it. We have 6 mana at the moment, and we would get potentially, and then we got 1 more from that Malcolm last turn, so we're at 7. Kind of like the idea of getting the Plunderers down. Again, attacking with Malcolm. Let's say we hit an opponent with it. Francisco explores. It's a Vanquisher's Banner. I'd say we leave it on top, get the counter on Francisco, so now it can start attacking a different player to get more more activations of both of them. We'll go 1 more turn. I think it'll be our last turn before that Midnight Clock goes off. I think I would just get down this Vanquisher's Banner and then maybe get down the Scoundrel before this hand gets shuffled back in with the Midnight Clock. Now we attack with Malcolm and Francisco in the air. Hopefully we can hit different people. Francisco would explore a couple times, and again, now we're kind of building this Francisco up. We're getting some things onto the board, and we can get that Midnight Clock working towards the next game. But let me know what you think of Francisco and Malcolm down in the comments section below, and I will catch you guys next time.